Alright guys, welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back. I'm doing some recording on the freeway, driving from LA down to San Diego. It's nearly a little bit after 4:30 p.m. So I was trying to leave right when I got off work to try to get past Orange County by 5. So we'll see if that is even an option. For those of you who aren't familiar with Los Angeles, oh my gosh, with the traffic, you've got to be kidding. Like, it's just a nightmare. At least it's not a Friday, because I think Fridays the traffic tends to be worse with people actually getting out of town. But I'm tired today and chose to leave earlier. Like a little before the traffic, to see if I could get kind of a leg up on getting back to San Diego faster, because I don't really want to wait because I'm so tired. And it's good. So I wrote down some topics last night or this morning. I'm going to be talking about insomnia. And there's a reason behind that, because I didn't sleep good last night. Now, I have been working out a little bit later, so I did have a pre-workout. And so that was yesterday that I had a pre-workout. And it was a little later than my ideal time. But the night before, I had one even later, around like 8. And so I can't really say for certain that it was that it was the pre-workout. And I didn't have an edible the night before, but last night I had an edible. And it did knock me out early. I was getting super drowsy around like 9:30, 10-ish. So I did kind of sleep a little late, but it was probably, I want to say it was before 11. But then I woke up around like 2 a.m. and I couldn't really sleep till probably like 5 a.m. Maybe even later. But I feel like it was close to like 5 a.m. I couldn't sleep. It started getting a little light out, and then I was like, okay, now I'm actually like super tired, because I remember saying like I have less than 2 hours before I need to log on for work. So my work performance today, I just had to pace myself. Didn't hit productivity because I was so tired. But I mean, sometimes there's just not much that any of us can do about these situations. It was kind of like I was tired, but also wasn't really in a mood to use like different coping skills and things to try to remedy the situation. I decided, I'd rather just be tired, at work, be tired all Wednesday, and just deal. Which is pretty much what I've been having to do. Because in my mind, I was like, well, it's worth it more to stay awake, and I kind of was noticing a lot of things. So I can't really generalize this to everybody and say that everybody's mind works the same, or that everybody does things the way that I'm about to explain. But I was just having a struggling night. I would call it some kind of anxiety, but I have been feeling kind of like extra irritable. Like, I know yesterday, I think the day before yesterday, just not feeling like my best as far as like, just not wanting to really talk to people. Like, different talking to my friends, but like, as far as like my parents and stuff, just like I was getting like super irritated, but they weren't really doing anything. I just, was just kind of like easily annoyed. And, that's on me. Like, they weren't doing anything, but I just wasn't feeling like my greatest the last couple days. So I did notice that. I was like, why am I like feeling like I just don't want anyone to talk to me? Like, everyone talking seems like they're just talking too much, when all the other days before, I was actually enjoying everyone's company, having a pleasant time, watching movies, eating food, just kind of chilling after work and stuff. And it was fun. And, I was just having an irritable day. And so I was just like, all right, that's just how it's going to be. And I was like, let me try not to be like too irritated at anybody and just deal. But yeah, last night and into this morning, I woke up and I was kind of like, I think even before I went to sleep, I was kind of like upset about something. And it's something that happened not that long ago, but it happened at like this gay bar and grill. It wasn't that long ago. I was with a friend, and they just kind of made a comment that was kind of like rude. They knew that it was rude, and there was some drinking at the same time. So this person kind of made a comment that was like, somewhere along the lines of, how come everybody you date either moves or is, or lives far away? And I was kind of like, I was annoyed by the question at that time. And it also wasn't accurate, because it's not everybody. There are just a select few people that I've had a situation like that with, and maybe they're focusing on that. But also, I was kind of like thinking about it in depth after a while. And I was like, this person almost always is like so interested in talking about relationships, other people's relationships. They're always asking me about other people's dating status and stuff. And then whenever we get together with other people, they're always trying to like put people on the spot about dating and all this kind of stuff. Dating other people and all, like, who is this person dating? Have you been seeing anybody? Like, and it's kind of like, I don't know anyone else who does that. And then just kind of like harps on it for like a long time. And it's like, I think it's like one of their favorite topics, but it's also kind of like, I don't know, like maybe it's just me thinking it's just rude if somebody's like challenging someone else's relationship choices. It's like, does it really matter? Unless your friend, in my opinion, unless your friend is with somebody who's being like not good to them, or like abusive or unfaithful, or like something that is like, like maybe this isn't maybe the best decision, as long as they're having fun, I don't think it's really anything to really complain about or be concerned on. But it's kind of like, I kind of noticed this person kind of putting ideas that are just like, that they seem to think that a lot of different situations seem negative, and they try to point out a lot of stuff that seems like negative, but it's kind of like, at the same time, it's not really problems. It's just like, maybe people just want to date out of the norm, like, if you wanted a poly relationship or whatever, like they're also kind of limited in their thinking about dating. And then a lot of my friends are quite broad in, their styles of dating, like the people that we all hang out with this person. And so that's why I'm kind of like a little bit like, the more I started thinking about it, but it did kind of keep me up, because I was like thinking about the situation before I went to bed, and then I woke up thinking about it too. But I was kind of like I mentioned, I was kind of irritable, and then I was like kind of fuming about this. Like, after a while, it's like, how dare they act like this, like, because they're always bringing it up, like, in group situations, or even when you're just out to dinner. And it's kind of like, at a certain point, I was kind of like going through my own mind on it, and I was like, I do like talking about relationships with people, especially because the way I grew up, there wasn't a lot of, like, talk because of the religion about, like, dating and relationships, or anything along those lines. And so, yeah, there just really wasn't. So this is Tomboy Official, and to get things kind of more detailed towards, our people, this person isn't completely unaware of relationships that aren't straight cis relationships, but I think also they're just a bit rigid in their thinking. And so part of me is like, I don't have to talk to this person about, my relationships with people, because I'm confident in it. I'm okay with dating somebody, who's in a poly relationship, or dating, any gender of person, or casually dating someone and having like a situationship for a long period of time. These types of things do not faze me in a way where I would consider not going out with somebody if I like the person. So I was finding that interesting, that I'm just like, well, this person really just doesn't understand. They just seem so confused about everything. And then part of me also thinks they're just not listening, and they're just looking for like problems to point out or concerns to point out. And I know they're a really anxious person too. So maybe this is just kind of the way they think, and they just worry about like so much stuff, where I'm just like, dude, I was having fun before I talked to you about all this. Like, I wasn't having any concerns. I wasn't insecure about anything going on. Like, nothing was really an issue. I think they're just like trying to like pull out issues and things where there's really no actual problems. Now, going back to the comment of somebody saying that, why was I dating so many people that are out of town maybe, or that moved. In the live situation, when we were at this like gay bar place, eating kind of like a Baja Cali Mexican type of food, and drinking and stuff, the way that they seemed to be thinking was that everybody that I date is moving or not living in town. And for me, I'm like, well, why is that an issue for them? Because I don't complain about it. I only mention it because this person, like I said, is often asking so many questions about relationships that I'm in, or who I'm dating, or who I've met, or who I'm talking to, and whatnot. Because this is how, they're trying to like ask about those things, and I'm comfortable telling them, I usually don't get, like, because they're so concerned about it. And it's like, well, I'm not concerned about the distance, especially considering that, yes, I've dated some people that have moved, and the reason why they moved was because of the pandemic. And I was starting to date a person that was not really sure where they were going to work, but I really liked the person. So I was like, well, why would I not stick around? You know, in my head, it's like, it's not a desperation thing, but more so, if I like somebody, even if it's temporary, I'd rather be with them for a temporary amount of time, have some good experiences, have some fun, you know, and let the chips fall where they may. I'm never like expecting that someone who says they're gonna move is not gonna move, or someone who lives like far away is gonna like move near me. I'm never really expecting that or hoping for that or thinking that. I already know the reality of somebody not being like within a 10-15 minute drive. You know, if they live like 2 hours away, that's not a problem. But I have to say, before the Rona, the city where I used to date people in was a city where I used to go like every other weekend. So I was always out there anyways. And if it's like a casual relationship and you're already out there like every other weekend, I mean, there's still plenty of time to meet up. It's not like I'm dating people across the country or in other states or whatever. Like, they're still within a distance and close to where I visit family often. And even sometimes when I've taken days off work, I would be there often. And now that I mostly work remotely, I'm a lot more flexible to kind of be in town anywhere. Like, I can date any, you know, it doesn't matter, because I can be in any city for the most part if I want to be. And so I still don't really see why they brought that up. And part of me just thinks that they're just aloof, unaware. Another part of me is like, okay, well, maybe it's the alcohol, because I know how they get when they drink. And then another part of me is like, well, maybe they just like waiting till there's a group so they can put people on the spot. And I remember responding that, you know, a lot of the people I date, you know, it doesn't really bother me, you know. And I can't remember exactly what I said, but I remember part of what I said, saying that, like, people that I date, you know, like, it doesn't really make a difference. I remember trying to make that point. It doesn't make a difference to me. Especially if it's something casual. Like, who cares where they live? It's casual. And like, it goes both ways, right? They know where I live too. I mean, they know I'm just as far away from them as they are from me. So if they're down and I'm down, like, why would it be an issue? Because we're both kind of like interested enough to see, kind of like, just to feel things out, you know. And I remember mentioning that, because I was kind of put on the spot, and I remember mentioning, well, a lot of the people I date don't really have like solid degrees. And I remember mentioning the Rona, that it's like, well, you know, people move because they don't have work, so they gotta go somewhere. And then also, you know, I know a lot of people, you know, LGBT people, when I'm dating them, they don't necessarily live, they don't necessarily like have family that's very supportive of them all the time. Like, I can't think of that many people, honestly, that I've dated that have like families that are very supportive. My family is supportive, but they're supportive in their own way. There's still some kind of gaslighting and narcissistic traits, and just kind of like too much passivity on like some levels of certain types of serious things that need to be handled that just kind of don't get handled. There is some kind of stuff that like I would like to see improved on, but you know, it's better than, like, I've never been like kicked out or disowned. Like, my family doesn't really do that, but also they are quite distant. We can't really have like real conversations about things because there's a lot of traditional and cultural and generational gaps my parents not really being from the city where me and my siblings were raised, not being from cities at all, and having all these kind of worry mindsets about like being in a city. And that is definitely something that, the opportunity is something that they kind of gravitate towards. Because I know my dad, like, he was really like smart, and I'm not saying my mom's not smart, she is, but she's more like, I'd say she's more like kind of emotionally smart, like kind of like she has good people skills, more so than my dad for sure. My dad does not have good people skills at all, but he's very intelligent, but he doesn't really care if he's hurting people's feelings, if he's kind of being truthful or not, if he's being fair or not. Like, if he's just in a grumpy mood, he doesn't really care to really like try to make sure he's not like hurting people's feelings. My mom, you can have a disagreement with her and just like go into the next subject like nothing ever happened. Like, she's not taking low blows, like verbally anyways. She's not like, being like rude or mean, or like, like you can still have disagreements with her and not feel like, I can't believe like the way she was like saying that and her tone, and like I just think I can have conversations with her in a way that I know we just don't see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. Religion, sexuality, friendship, finance, like all kinds of different topics, She's not much of a social butterfly. My dad is a social butterfly. They're just different, but, they have their own ways about them. And, they're accepting enough. Like, they're never, like, trying to kick us out. And then, like, culturally, it was never like, oh, you're 18, you gotta leave. Like, even if we're, like, married with kids, I mean, family's family, and they don't really care. Like, there's a difference between, like, if you need a place to stay, definitely it's an option if you just need to kind of get back on your feet, or if you just want to be close to family and don't want to have, like, that much distance, then that's okay too. But if it comes to just like mooching and like, I just don't want to pay rent or pay for anything, and I'm just going to live off of you and make you pay all my groceries, gas, everything, while I party and do nothing and don't work or whatever, like, that wouldn't be okay. Like, I've never talked to my parents about like officially moving back, because even if I do it ever, which I haven't, but even if I do move back, I don't plan on staying like long. It would be for like a specific reason, like if I'm gonna like work on trying to buy a house, or like, get another car, or like something where it would make sense, where like I just need to save the rent money and I'd contribute, I'd still pay rent, I'd still want to work, I'd still want to be busy. I don't like not working, even if I do get burnt out working. I don't like to not work. So, things like that, if I just needed, the extra support, I know as long as they're alive and they could help, they would. But I also, I feel like they've helped me plenty in life, to the point where I really try not to really ask them for anything. Like, but then I do think, this is getting off topic, but I mean, like, I do think that they don't want me to like rely on them necessarily, but I mean, I think it's hard for them to find their place in our relationship, especially, they have me and my brother and my sister, like, they have 3 kids and we're all quite independent, and I think culturally they're just not used to that. Generationally, they're just not used to that. They would rather have us closer by and more communal, I guess you would say, and we prefer our distance, and we're kind of all happy with our independent lives. that we have, and then we visit family, talk to family, things like that. That's kind of what we prefer. I feel like I'm happier that way just because it's hard to live in a space where people just don't agree so much. But we have some communication. I wouldn't say we don't talk. I just know which topics I can bring up with who, which ones not to bring up, and just what to talk about that's like just safe topics. And then other topics, we can talk about deep topics, but then there are some topics that we just can't really touch. And so I don't really know, like, I just don't really know, a lot of families that are like that, even if, they don't agree with, like, anything that's not cis straight stuff, like, they don't agree with it. But then, have a straight sibling that has a partner that's straight, and my parents still complain. So it's kind of like, there's really no... They're just going to complain anyways. They do complain about a lot of things. So, but I mean, I feel it's not like toxic to the point that I have to avoid them or ignore them or completely stay away. Like, I kind of know, like, the past couple days I've been a little irritated. I maybe could have used some time not at the house. Not around family, and I was kind of not necessarily ready to go back to my own space in San Diego, but I also wasn't really trying to like talk to them, and I really just wanted to like work on my own stuff, be in my own head, but they kind of don't really understand that. And I did end up vegging and watching a whole lot of TV and movies and all kinds of stuff where it's like originally I don't really watch that kind of thing. I'm usually, like I mentioned, I don't have a TV, and so I'm usually like recording and like working on my hobbies and stuff. So it was nice to relax, take my mind off things for a while, feel like I was on a little mini vacay, had people cooking for me and stuff. Like, I appreciate it. I loved it. Food's good. Like, I don't have any like major complaints. I was just feeling kind of like irritated, like that's just how it goes sometimes with me. That's how I am. But I noticed it, and I was like, okay, it's going to be hard to keep this under wraps. But then I also was noticing, maybe it's the pre-workout, because I was having some C4, and it's like both of the nights when I had the C4, I was kind of feeling irritated those evenings. And I wasn't really eating meals exactly on time. I think I was eating a little bit later, and then today, like, I was just already kind of stressed because I knew I had to drive, and then woke up super irritated. I was glad when I woke up. I was just like, I'm just gonna make coffee as I'm logging in for work, and then like my mom comes up and starts like trying to talk and like how she's so tired, and I'm like, I'm tired. And I thought she would kind of just hear in my voice, in my tone, like I'm just not in the mood to talk. It's not even 8 o'clock in the morning, and she's usually not like up and about at that time, but she knew I was gonna leave at 4, so she was like, well, I'm gonna make breakfast for us. And she just starts talking, and I was like, oh my god. Like, in my head, I'm like, oh my god. Like, I'm just trying my best not to, like, say anything. And so I just kind of, like, was like, okay, like, like, grumbling around, and just kind of left the room, and then came back and got my coffee real quick, and then just, like, left, the room. And, like, because I just wasn't... Because, like, it's hard for... Like, when I'm really that irritated, it's, like, usually I just want to be like, okay, like, leave me alone kind of thing. So... I'm trying to get better with that, but at the same time, it's like, man, I was really feeling it. But yeah, I was like, well, she's being nice. I just don't want to talk to anybody right now. And she just wasn't getting it. And so, which is why, where I live with the housemates, I usually walk around with like earbuds in, because it kind of just gives the sign like, hey, I don't really want to talk to anybody, so leave me alone. And people don't even want to honor that, but then I feel like, well, I should just be able to ignore you because I'm clearly possibly listening to something. But, people always want to try to talk. I have a housemate that's like super nosy, so I'm like, well, you already talk so much crap about everybody and just don't mind your own business, and you're so like nosy that it's like, why would I want to talk to you in the first place? But yeah, but so there's yeah, so that's kind of a lot of kind of what goes on. But yeah, I was with this friend, I was trying to mention on the spot that, I don't know a lot of people whose families are like stable. It's very common that like a lot of people, like I kind of brought up like LGBT issues, saying like a lot of people don't have stable families and stuff. So if things aren't working out for them, it's not like me where I could just like have somewhere to go and figure it out, or like have people who would back me up and support me. They don't have that. So they have to fend for themselves. And, because San Diego is such an expensive city, ideally it just makes sense if you don't have money to pay for something, if you're in an emergency situation or in a bind, why would you want to be paying like over $1,000 to rent a room, or like $1,600 for a studio, on top of that having the deposit and all that kind of stuff. Like people don't have that kind of money all the time. And so I was just trying to make a point that like that could be one of the things impacting. But also I just know myself, the more I was thinking about it, I was like, yeah, I just value having relationships with people. Like I'd rather have a relationship, not necessarily like a romantic dating relationship, not necessarily like that, but I'd rather have a relationship with somebody, friendship, an experience, get to know somebody I don't really know, and just, socialize with somebody new. Even though I love my old friends and stuff too, I'm not always just like bouncing around looking for like some new person to like interact with. It's not like that. Like, but I was just thinking like, why is that an issue? Like I know a lot of people would rather just not put up with it. I know there's kind of like probably like some heartache involved, if it's like somebody's moving and you really care for one another. But for me, it's like the heartache isn't that big of a deal. I feel like I'm good at making friends with people, at connecting with people. I enjoy having good, healthy connections with people. And so for me, it's very valuable, even if I know someone's going to leave. And I was thinking about a situation where it's like, say, like I have a friend, like I do have a friend who lives in Anaheim. And say I have a friend in Anaheim. And say I take a week off to visit this friend in Anaheim, and say I want to stay near Disney and just crash there for like a week at a hotel or something. And this friend of mine, I know he has a lot of cousins and friends and stuff, and most of the cousins I've met are really good people. I really like his family and everything, and I've met plenty of his family members that we didn't really talk. I mean, I met plenty of his family members that we didn't really see each other too often or anything. Like, it's not like I get their numbers and stuff. But I was thinking of a scenario where it's like, okay, say I'm visiting this guy. I'm in town for a week nearby his place, and we have some maybe fitness plans where we're going to go to Gold's Gym every day. Maybe I can get a pass off of him, and we're going to rock climb and lift, and, maybe we're going to train for like a week and just have like a boot camp together for a week. Because that would be fun. That's something I would find fun. I would really enjoy myself on that with him. I really like hanging out with him, and like he's active. I really like that kind of stuff. And so I really was gonna want to, I was thinking about like actually trying to set something like that up with him. But I was just thinking of a scenario where it's like, well, what if I'm there for a week and he has a cousin, which wouldn't be out of the norm if he has like a cousin from the Philippines or somewhere visit, and the cousin is only there for like a week, but me and the cousin start hitting it off, right? And me and the cousin get not necessarily like super close or anything, but we start chatting and like notice how much fun we're having, and might potentially be kind of like a pen pal situation. And the cousin may or may not travel back and forth towards Southern California here and there. So we could potentially maybe see each other again, maybe never again. But even if it was going to be just for that week, and somebody was like, and that cousin was like genuinely like, hey, let me get your number, because when you leave after this week, I'm gonna be like down in your area for like 2 days, and let's like meet up and stuff. Naturally, I would just take numbers, swap numbers, like get to know each other still, talk, hang out, like not even in a necessarily romantic or crushing way, but usually that's just how I am. If somebody else reaches out that's like they want to connect and I want to connect and we're already having a good connection, I don't care if they're even going to only be there one more week. I'd rather have more opportunities to hang out with them. And then even same thing, if it was a month or 2 weeks or a year, and say if there was some kind of crush or romantic relationship between me and another person, I would rather just go for it and be in the moment with the situation, knowing that it's very likely going to end. In my head, keep it that 100%, it's not gonna go past a certain date that this person has planned to leave. I wouldn't try to beg them to stay. I wouldn't try to go move with them. That's just kind of how I am, and I was kind of thinking about it and noticing like, I don't really limit myself with relationships. When I'm into the relationship, even if it's going to be something temporary and I know that we're not going to like be so much in contact or anything, like to me it's not worth not having fun and not connecting temporarily. I'd rather just have the connection. I'd rather just spend the time together and have the fun together. To me, I value that kind of thing. And I know a lot of people don't. And I know a lot of people would be like, oh, there's going to be some hurt involved. There's going to be some pain involved. There's going to be a lot of like you already know it's going to end. But I think I was kind of in a way almost like kicking myself that like that's kind of genuinely how I felt. But because the way this friend kind of mentions things and puts things on the spot like that, and if we're drinking and I'm just out with the boys, like I'm out with a crew of like gay dudes, and like they were chill with it, and they, a couple of them were like kind of commenting when I was like talking and stuff, and nobody really seemed to be like on her side, and they were kind of letting me like fend for myself and stuff. They weren't really like not into talking to me or anything about it or like whatever, but they could tell that okay, that was kind of like a in my head it was kind of like a party fail. Like you don't really just like put in like a bummer kind of situation when everyone else is doing good, having fun, enjoying their time, and then I think that friend just kind of took it too far, and it's probably the alcohol, honestly. But I don't think, it's something that maybe I should just take with a grain of salt, because it's not the first time they've done something kind of like that. But, I was kind of having some weird kind of situation the past couple days, and my head just wasn't really, letting things go. And that's kind of how my mind was working, and I just couldn't let it go, and it was upsetting me, like making me like angry and feel like insecure towards myself. And I was like, there's I have like a method that I kind of developed, and I was like, okay, I think that I did notice that I wanted to just not really like keep on. I didn't want to ignore it. I wanted to kind of try to process it. I didn't really want to like ignore it. I wanted to kind of feel it. and not ignore it and not distract from it and not just like do some kind of deep breathing or like late night kind of like relaxation to like fall asleep. I was like, I'd rather be awake. And I still don't know if that is always the best. Like, I don't regret it now at all, but I don't feel like that's like always the best method. Maybe it doesn't feel like it's always like the 100% best of methods, but I don't feel like I was hurting myself. I feel like I actually got a lot more clarity. And I also was thinking like about what I value. I got to think more into that I do value relationships with people. I do value my friendships. I do value connections a lot, even if they're temporary. I do, I also value like, letting people kind of identify things for themselves. So when people are like asking me so many questions about other friends, I'm more likely to want them to ask those other friends about their relationship statuses and like about who they're dating and all that. Like, I'm not too comfortable like just revealing that to everyone, because I feel like also because sometimes other people don't keep up with each other, a lot of times people might come to me like when we have friends in common and they might ask me a lot about other people, and I don't really want to be that go-to person that's just like has all the dish on everybody. I mean, I'm there to connect with them on the level between me and them. I'm not there to kind of spread their life to every single person. And so I don't really feel the need to really do that. I actually prefer not to. And I like catching up with my friends and talking with them about their relationships and being like really like connected with one another about relationships and things. And me and my boys, either the gay boys, the straight boys, whichever boys, like we talk about women, we talk about our friends, we talk about dates, stuff like that. Like, not talk crap, but we just like, we fill each other in about like what's going on. And I really like talking to guys about girls. Like, it's kind of something that I actually value a lot. And so I actually really enjoy it. And even if they're straight guys or gay guys, I like talking to them about women. And so it's kind of nice, to have those connections and relationships. I like it. But also, I don't want people to think that, I got all the chisme, or that I'm kind of like trying to be like gossipy. Nothing like that. Like, I really don't want to be that person. And so a lot of times I feel like, people might want to try to like find out too much stuff. And I think this specific person is just nosy. Like, I know a lot of people like that are just nosy and they just can't help themselves, and I just don't really want to be a part of that anymore. It's just not really something that I value. Like, I don't really value other people trying to use my connections with my friends to kind of get like some kind of dish, or to, get some inside scoop about something that they have each other's numbers too. They can all just ask one another. It's not like I'm the only person, but people always say the same thing. Oh, it's going to be awkward. It's like, well, it's not my fault that you didn't keep in touch to the point where it's going to be awkward for you. Like, that's not my fault, Like, talk to each other then. Like, I go out of my way to tell people when I'm in town, when I'm in which place, when I'm in what area, and make plans and try to connect and stay in touch and text people and I'm online with them. And maybe it's a little excessive sometimes because I do connect with a lot of people. But I'm learning. It's taken probably like it's taken a little bit to kind of learn where it's like, okay, maybe I'm texting like a little bit too much, or maybe like people don't really want these like stupid videos from me. You know, like sometimes like it takes me a while to kind of get the etiquette down because every person is different. So I try to take, you know, in the cues where people say like, oh, I'm busy, or if they're just like, oh, I'm studying, or like if they just like heart something or thumbs up something or smiley face or something, I'm like, well, they're not trying to engage. And then, you know, I have friends that, you know, text me a lot sometimes, and it might feel a little bit like way too heavy, where I'm like, man, like I'm so tired, so exhausted, and this is so heavy, and this person is just like over and over just like texting me about all their problems and stuff. But I'm like, you know, I don't want them to not do it. It's just I hope that they don't think that I'm having to read every single word for word and reply right away. I mean, I'll go like a few days without replying, but then I'll go back and read it when I feel like it, or, you know, and I think they kind of understand. And I've even explained to them like, hey, you know, like sometimes I'm just drained and I just, you know, I'll get back to you about stuff, but like it might not be same day, or you might be sleeping, or I might be awake and you might be asleep, or, you know, you might text me while I might be asleep or whatever, like, you know, but I mean, we have an understanding and a good connection. And I feel like texting really helps to stay in contact. And I do appreciate when people take a while to like explain, you know, what they're going through, and like they text a lot of information. Sometimes I'm like, wow, they really put in a lot of effort and they're really like trusting me with like telling me all this stuff. I mean, I do value that a lot. I'm not going to say that I don't. I do value it a lot. It's just, you know, I work in a really stressful field, and it's kind of like hard sometimes. That's all. Like, I can't always be emotionally available for every person all the time. But I try to be, especially when I feel like I can be. And I think people know that about me, and I feel good about it. So I don't really know. I think people deal with a lot. I'm trying not to put things internal on myself, because that's kind of where I notice my mind goes, is just to be like, think about like, you know, something that somebody said, even though it wasn't something recent. But I'm gonna see this person tomorrow, which is why, with a group of friends, which is kind of why I started thinking about all this. I was like, oh no, they're probably gonna ask me about all this other stuff. So there was some anxiety there, and just not really knowing how to deal with like memories of like recent experiences where it was just like I came out a little irritated and then never really processed that out too much. But I think I could talk more about like kind of methods that I'm kind of learning about how to, you know, process kind of what I'm kind of noticing going on. So I do want to talk about that more. And all right, with that, thanks for listening, and I will be back with more information on this topic.